Hello, everyone. Welcome to the December DMI Advocacy Update. I'm your host, Jason Ilstrup, president of Downtown Madison. Nick, we're going to be giving an update on all things downtown in the advocacy world. We're also going to have a conversation with Madison Parks Superintendent Eric Knepp to discuss what's happening in the parks downtown. There are lots of them with lots of important projects. We are proud to have this series sponsored by our good friends at Scenair, our major series sponsor for the Advocacy Update. We also have our friends at the Fiore Companies and Hush Blackwell. Thank you to both Scenair, not both. I guess if you're saying three things, it's more than both. So thank you to our three friends, Scenair, Fiore, and Hush Blackwell, for your sponsorship of our Advocacy Update series, which is all about updating our members about everything that's happening in the advocacy world. First up, we've got our good friend, Senior Vice President of Business Development at Scenair, Chris Gillings, with us today. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Jason. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. But our pre-meeting, we were talking with your good friend, Eric Knepp, because you are both coaches for youth sports. What do you coach, Chris?
I coach quite a bit of baseball, at West Madison Little League, but also on a couple of travel teams, just trying to keep the kids busy. But I pinch hit wherever I'm needed to coach. So even if it's not one that I'm used to, Jason, I usually get enlisted.
Good one. I like that pun. That was good. And
yeah,
if we're going to be full disclosure here, Chris Gillings has been the coach to my godson in years past. Good old Charlie. Good old Charlie.
Good old Charlie. And in future years, we're getting geared up for next year already.
I mean, it's never too early for baseball season, particularly when it's December and the weather is turning the wrong direction. Chris, what's happening at Scenair? How's everything at Scenair?
Everything's good. We're wrapping up 2023 just like most. So to you, the whole DMI staff, Eric, to you and the staff at Parks, and everybody out there, our best wishes for a happy, peaceful, and joyous holiday season. We're wrapping up another really, really strong year in 2023 of supporting affordable housing and community development work across our footprint. But really, the reason why we're part of this series is most have heard too many times on these podcasts has been the whole idea of obeying our why statement. We exist primarily to make sure that because we believe that all people deserve the benefits that come from living in healthy communities. And those investments are more than just housing. Housing is a critical need of that. But a lot of it is parks and green space and opportunity to share the landscape that we enjoy. And obviously here in Madison, having access to the lakes and a tremendous network of parks is a huge part of making for healthy communities, for recreation, for exercise, for gathering, and just for maintaining a reminder that we're a part of nature. So grateful to Eric and his staff, excited to hear some of the updates for the downtown parks. Obviously, a lot of the work that they've done even beyond downtown that downtown residents rely on, like the Glen Golf Park, and the tremendous change there that's an amenity to downtown too. So excited for this conversation. It's a good one to be as we slip into winter, thinking about getting outside again next spring. So excited to hear this conversation with Eric.
Here, you're absolutely right about the need for green space in downtown to make these livable, walkable communities for everyone. But I would add, parks aren't just about the summer, Chris. I mean, aren't you an ice skater? Aren't you a cross-country skier? I mean, I love cross-country skiing. There we go. You can snowshoe at Odana or Elver or many of the wonderful Madison parks. I feel like I'm an advertisement for the parks now, but I do like the parks.
There you go. We love them. We love them.
We do love them. All right. Thank you, Chris, and the team at Scenair, also our friends at Hush Blackwell and the Fiore Companies for your partnership with our advocacy series. We're going to have an update on all things advocacy here in the downtown. And we're starting off with the release of our 2023 DMI Downtown Madison State of the Downtown Report. It was released 2 weeks ago with a fantastic event at the Edgewater Hotel. We had almost 450 folks participate in the event. We had a great panel with Kirsten DiMartino from University of Wisconsin, Bob Bruni from ULI, Heather Stouter from the city of Madison, and Ellie Westman Chin with Destination Madison, talking about the report and what's happening in downtown and what we see in the future of downtown. That conversation was recorded, so you can find it on our YouTube channel. You could also find a copy of our report, the 2023 report, our 13th ever State of the Downtown report on our website. It is chock full of facts, figures, and data about live, work, and play in downtown. One exciting change we have with our information, with our data, is coming in 2024 on our website. We're going to add a data dashboard. We're going to have about a dozen or so different economic data variables that we're going to be looking at and tracking. And these will happen more often than just yearly in our State of the Downtown report. Our strategic plan really wanted us to dive deeply into the economic development of downtown. And one way to do that is share the good or the bad data on the economics of downtown. So please do check out our website here in the next couple of weeks for a new downtown data dashboard. It's exciting, exciting work. An update on something we've been discussing for several months now on the Advocacy Update is our work around the Regent Street area and our push for more density in and around the Regent Street corridor. We worked with the City of Madison, the Plan Commission, and the City Council just approved 2 special map notes in the area. They're additions to the current 2008 Regent Street plan that adds more density, roughly 2 floors on a whole series of parcels on both the south and the north sides of Regent in the residential areas, but also in the employment and university areas as well. We want to push for more development there because that's where we could see more development. That's where the folks that are moving to downtown want to live, in and around campus, in and around downtown. And there's a lot of area to grow right around Regent Street. And we were very thankful for the City Council's decision to agree with us and add more density. We hope that this sends a message to developers to, hey, add more housing, badly needed housing and other amenities in and around the Regent Street area. A couple of transportation updates here in downtown. Big news on the passenger train front. The federal government awarded the state of Wisconsin $2.5 million in planning funding for extending passenger rail to more cities throughout Wisconsin, including the extension of the Hiawatha line that currently runs from Chicago to Milwaukee and vice versa and back again, all the way to Madison and into Madison, right? So this will be the first passenger rail service in Madison in decades and decades of time. What's important about this is that $500,000 in planning can help potentially start a project that could be 100% federally funded. The same time, the city of Madison is going through an exercise to find the correct station location for a potential station here in Madison. And there are 6 sites located in and around the downtown and east side sections of the city. Look for more information soon in public meetings in Q1 from the city. We'll certainly get you that information in future DMI advocacy updates, but this is really quite important news about adding passenger rail to Madison. This is important amenity, an important, I would say, economic development driver for the downtown. And downtown Madison's position is that we want to see passenger rail here in the city, and we want the station to be as close to downtown as possible, but most importantly, connected to current transit, particularly the bus rapid transit, to make it a seamless system to get to your next destination. Next up is bus rapid transit. The construction has already been happening on both the east and the west sides. If you've noticed, obviously, if you've driven down East Washington or Middle Point Road, for instance, and University Avenue, you see those stations going up. Downtown is about to get our stations. And in February or early March, you're going to see the construction of 2 couplets of stations, the first on the Capitol Square, one on Mifflin and one on Main. Also, then we'll have construction on the 200 and 300 blocks of State Street. It's going to take a few months to have that work happen, but they wanted to do it in the sort of calmest season when they weren't having the farmers market and many of the events. And we're very thankful for the city for that timing, but they're still anticipated to open the bus rapid transit, the first east-west line, sometime in the fall of 2024. We are very supportive of this project, and we're feeling very strong about being able to get more people in and out of the downtown. It's going to be a very good way to get into the downtown. Last but not least, this will be certainly a topic with Superintendent Eric Knepp, is the city's ad hoc committee on the Lake Monona waterfront. Excuse me. Just approved the master plan from Sasaki, and that will move forward to the other parties, the other parts of the city government that are looking at it. This is a dynamic plan that you should absolutely pay attention to, and what they're doing on 4 different sections of the Lake Monona waterfront. We're certainly going to get into that more in depth with our friend Eric Knepp, but wanted to make sure that was part of our advocacy update. All right, enough of me talking. No one wants that, do they? But I guess you're listening, so you're this deep into it, so I guess you do want to hear some. Let's hear someone else talk. We've got a very good friend of downtown Madison Inc. and downtown, and in particular the green spaces in downtown, Madison Park Superintendent Eric Knepp. We're gonna have a conversation about downtown parks and some big catalytic projects, including the Lake Monona waterfront. Eric, how are you today?
Doing excellent, Jason. Doing
Cool.
excellent. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Happy holidays, my friend. And you came in with a very growl to your voice. Did you ever do radio?
I've never done radio. I don't know that people want to hear me talk that much.
I think you'd be a great like late night radio host.
I could certainly turn a lot of 90s era grunge metal for the fans. If we were going back to late 90s college radio, that could have been another career.
Is that your music of choice? 90s grunge?
Music is kind of there's a soundtrack to life, right? It's certainly not what I listen to a lot with young children, even though I'm a big Tool fan. They are not. But there's a time and space where that Radiohead, Deftones, Tool certainly hits a note with an existential reckoning, if you will.
Apparently, Eric, I did not know this, but I think Eric Knepp and I are the exact same age because I understand all those references. For those that are in Gen Z that are paying attention, just I guess you could just Google it.
Spotify. Try Spotify. That's how they do that now.
Spotify. Yeah. Well, I'm so old. I'm still using Pandora, Eric. Pandora with ads still, of course. Who wants to? I don't want to pay any fees for that. No. Eric, all right. Let's just jump right into it. We're so proud to have so much green space here in the capital area and in the downtown area. What's happening right now? What's the future of some of these key parks in the downtown area, like James Madison Park, Brittingham Park? What are we seeing in these parks, and how can we keep them healthy and alive and vibrant places for people to connect?
That's a great question. It's a very big question. So I'll just kind of do as I think a lot of times I think geospatially about our system as well, which gives a help. We have an anchor here at downtown to work from, because I don't think anybody wants to go through the whole 280 circular logic that I'm going to go through if we did that song and dance. But no, the downtown core park system, I mean, very frankly, we've been planning for about a decade plus, recognizing that, the growth in residents downtown has continued and sustained over the years. The activity levels downtown have as well. And that's a huge partnership and frankly, driven mostly not by the city. The city is a key part, but, a huge partnership with so many folks, including a ton of members of DMI. And we recognize that vibrant downtown is a special place. And we want to be able to provide what we do in our corner of the world, which is a, vibrant, connected, safe park system. So it really extends back, and I have to rewind. It's actually more than a decade. I'm getting old. Things that have happened and where we're going. And the city does move a little glacially, a lot, not always, but a lot of the time. But we do it with planful intention. So things that I think are relevant here, if you're looking from a downtown focus, we have an adopted master plan for James Madison Park and Vilas Park in the last 8 years. We've dramatically changed the utilization of Breeze Stevens in the last decade. More to come on that later and talk about the future. McPike Park, grand opening as Central Park at the time, is only a decade ago, and it feels a lot longer, right? And then we have key acquisitions or transformations. Lakefront Porch, I want to highlight that one as a neighborhood parklet, as I like to call it, and the Senior Center Plaza reconfiguration. Right. So there's just a lot of things in downtown already. You mentioned in your remarks, the region area plan. That's a spot that a little beyond my time, but not that long ago, 20 years and less, we were expanding Cleef Park to anticipate future developmental needs. We did not anticipate when we put that backstop in just how many college students do enjoy keg ball, and that turf management continues to be a challenge at Cleef, if you're familiar. But
Wait, I'm sorry. What is the sport? Keg ball?
keg ball. Some of your members could probably, if they attended the UW Madison, could probably highlight. I had never heard of this game until I witnessed it at Cleef Park, but it involves kickball and a keg at second base. That's about as far as I know. And the problem and the challenge with managing that is um, apparently that's an all-weather sport. So rain, mud, doesn't matter. Destroys the turf. Not uh, they don't follow the rain call the call or the athletic field cancellation line policy very well. But that said, I mean, all of the parks, literally every park we own within a half mile downtown has gotten attention over the last decade and will over the next decade. You also referenced Brittingham. For those who remember Brittingham in 2008, 9, or 10, we've certainly, through partnership, really changed the game there. I think, our park ranger team, MPD, the Bayview Foundation, Community Groundworks, and the gardens, and of course, Brittingham Boats is a partner, Camper and Rowing Club. That park has changed pretty dramatically, I think, for anybody who's been around Madison. So we continue to invest. I understand a lot, and that's why I give that list for folks is it's a big list, right? So it does take time and takes effort. But what's going on now? Right now, the Senior Center Plaza is just finishing construction. That'll be kind of grand opened in the spring. Won't be named the Senior Center Plaza, by the way. We're working on that. The lakefront porch continues to work towards development of what I consider, in many ways, to be a first step towards recognition of the value of investing on the lakefront. We will be working on planning for the expanded area of McPike that we do own now over the next few years. That's a little bit tied to something you also referenced, of potential passenger rail. So we want to be a little conscious of that. Breeze Stevens, there's more potential changes to come, and working with our partners. You've all heard, well, not more. Everyone, I think folks are generally aware of the potential of bringing women's professional soccer, and that being the goal. That will require more changes, and it will be a significant lift for everyone involved to get there. And then the Lake Monona waterfront, of course, is John Nolan identified this issue over 100 years ago, along with some other things. I really recommend reading A Model City. The things we followed his advice on, we did well on. The things we didn't, the Lake Monona waterfront, we did poorly on, and then we named a road after him, but that's beside the point. We didn't, well, it was like, he was fired. For those who don't know that history, he was fired by the city of Madison as a consultant. I mean, that's sometimes innovative people. That's how I know I'm not innovative, because I haven't been fired yet. But that's my joke, Jason.
That's the qualification for being innovative?
I think so. I shouldn't. I'm teasing. I'm teasing. But no, John Nolan was fired, but he identified this problem. The Nona Basin Plan identified this problem, that we had disconnected our downtown and our people from the lakeshore. And what's not unique, what's interesting about that is that problem hadn't existed before settlement, because the native Ho-Chunk peoples knew and had many paths and connection points and gathering spaces on those shores. So we're really just trying to reconnect to the water's edge, which is pretty logical what humans want to do if you watch their behaviors. We want to go there, we want to gather. And that plan that Sasaki has led, the community has driven, and the committee has approved, goes through the gauntlet, as I like to call it, of the city committees and commissions over the next few months. And we hope to move forward in design development of phase 1 in the coming year as well. And so it's kind of a brief snapshot.
Well, it's exciting times in downtown. And, next question I had was actually about Brittingham Park again. In particular, is you've made parks significantly more inclusive and particularly accessible for folks. Talk about the importance of that work and why you want to make sure that parks are gathering spaces for everyone in our community, whether or not you live in the downtown or not.
No, that's a very good point, Jason. And Brittingham Park hosts our first, what I would call, truly highly accessible. I never want to call something fully accessible. I used to use that term. I don't anymore, because I recognize that that's a really high bar. But we went above and beyond a standard park playground to really make it much more inclusive. It brings in folks with a poured in place rubber structure and ramping. It makes it much more accessible for folks using a wheelchair mobility device. But that also actually includes one thing that I didn't think about at the time that's really been impactful. And I've heard this story from a couple folks is the ability for grandparents to engage and play with toddlers with the ramping. And that's pretty cool. So that's an awesome feature. Brittingham's great for the accessibility focus because it already had a pretty good and solid. It's got a parking lot with accessibility. That's important. It's also got a pass system that's relatively pretty accessible, relatively flat. We have an accessible pier there you could fish from. And now, not far away on the other side of the bay on Bernie's Beach, we've installed that was our first installation of a accessible beach mat to allow folks in mobility device to get out on the sand beach. We're doing that as well at Vilas. We did that this year as well. And those have been really well received. It seems like a small thing, not that expensive, but it really changes and impacts people and makes it a more inclusive public space. And if we want the public space to be what I think we all do, which is a commons where we can come together, gather, um, meet, connect, we really need to be intentional about that design and how we include. And the act of planning for inclusion um, really does promote a much higher quality product from a public spaces perspective.
Yeah, there's no question. And I just want to say a huge thank you for that work. Because as you know, Downtown Madison Inc. 5 years ago published the Downtown Madison Accessibility Report, where we engaged with people with disabilities to ask, what were the challenges and what the barriers to enjoying life downtown. And parks was a big part of that. And the changes to Brittingham Park have made a huge difference. And I also want to commend you for the continued partnerships you have on many of the parks downtown. You mentioned Camp Randall Boathouse. You mentioned Brittingham Boats. You also mentioned Bree Stevens and the team, Vern and Connor at the team at Big Top. Really does help activate those spaces. Speaking of activation, you hinted at it, and we talked about it in the beginning of our presentation here today, but the Lake Monona waterfront, it really is a catalytic project, a once in a lifetime project, a generational project, whatever I would say correctly hyperbolic term you want to use, it is that important. Where are we today, and what do you see in the near term for potential implementation of this important master plan that's in the works of being approved now?
Yeah, that's a good question, and yeah, I don't know that there is really a hyperbolic term for this project. We've done many projects that are big in scale and important to our community, and a strong park system throughout every neighborhood is critical. But this space really is at the heart of our park system, connecting a downtown law park, or even, if you will, an East Side Willie Street in McPike to a South Side Olin, right? With the ped and bike connectivity along that corridor, where if you're going north to south, east to west on a bike, you're going to end up in this space, right? If you like to fish, right? If you like to boat, like this area really is the city's waterfront. And we're super glad. I attend the union often, and I don't want to send the wrong vision, right? Because we don't know exactly how it all plays out, but certainly like the union at the university is an amazing space, and really is that the university's kind of gathering space on the lake. And we do see the Lake Monona waterfront as that for the entirety of Madison and the region. And quite bluntly, we need to do this type of work on signature iconic park spaces because it is a piece of the puzzle that is relevant in a competitive global knowledge-based economy. And though that might not sound like the thing the superintendent should be talking about very often, and I won't go into details because I'm certainly not an expert, it is certainly on my mind. If we have a world-class research institution, we have an amazing downtown and a thriving private industry, this is a piece of that puzzle. And if you want to call it competitors or a co-opetition model, whatever you want to say, communities of a similar stature or in the same ballpark competing ultimately for business development opportunities that we are doing these type of things. And to me, it's not just a nice to have. I think for the future of the city of Madison and for entire public, for a great public space and a important piece of our place in the kind of global knowledge-based economy, I think it's kind of a have to have. And so what are we doing and where are we going now? I mentioned as approval happens, we hope it gets approved, but the council obviously don't decide that alone. But the committee's done great work putting together a balanced, thoughtful plan. uh, but still visionary and pushing the envelope forward. And because this will be, as that story breaks, I don't have the numbers, so I'm not hiding them from you, just so I'm clear. But as the story breaks over the next month or two, as we get those cost estimates in, there'll be big numbers, and that's scary at first. But ultimately, this is going to be in a partnership model. The city alone cannot fund this improvement. I don't know if cities anywhere funding these type of improvements alone, and that includes state, federal, private sources, innovative city source, using a diverse range of city sources and other partners. Um, but the current status, so then what we'll have is that'll go through the approval process. We're coming right behind that with the contract with Sasaki. We really want to keep them on board to do design development of phase one. Phase one will be roughly from right around the tunnel area between North Shore and Broome, all the way across the causeway to John Olin, or Olin Park, Olin Terrace. Sorry, Olin Park, not Olin Terrace. There used to be an Olin Terrace. Some people don't know that. Maybe they do. But anyway, that segment will be design development for about 12 to 16 months max, ideally even a little faster, because we want to try to catch up to that causeway project. And so the city start of this investment is really that massive federally supported project of the John Nolan Drive reconstruction, which is accommodating of the vision we're creating for the Lake Monona waterfront. And the hope would be to see design development leading directly into construction and having that segment kind of complete by 2028 at the latest is the kind of the goal. Phases after that will frankly be tied heavily to a development of a partnership model. Our goal is to create a conservancy type organization similar to an Obrick Gardens, Obrick Botanical Society in partnership at Obrick Gardens. That's kind of a must-have too. These things are also, they're not done alone, and every community who does these, that's the relationship of how they get done. So that's kind of where we are and what it means. And I think it's pretty critical, and it'll be hard. It'll be a challenge, and there'll be some friction, but I think we must have a direction that the North Star of doing these type of things isn't just nice. It's imperative.
I wholeheartedly agree, and very thankful for that sentiment. It really focused on the importance of not only community development, which is vastly important and vitally important, excuse me, for this type of project, but the economic development side of it as well. I mean, this is a city on the rise, and we need to do everything we can to attract and create magnets for that talent. And then once they're here, they have to be connected. Downtowns and places on the waterfront are always going to be places of connection. And you need to create places for that to happen. And I can't think of anything better than, being on the water on the isthmus, right? We're a competitive advantage. We're one of only 2 downtowns that are on an isthmus in America, and the other is Seattle. And they're doing the exact same thing that we are right now. They actually destroyed their double-decker highway, and now have done phase 1 of their Lake Monona, or their Lake Monona waterfront project. Their Lake Washington waterfront project, or that's the Bay, I should say, actually. But it's an amazing project that we need to continue to push forward. And I also want to say a huge thank you from the side of the private side on this work. This has truly been a public-private partnership. 50% of the costs for the design challenge were furnished by the city, but the other 50% were furnished by the Friends of Nolan Waterfront, an organization that I'm proud to be an executive committee member, and DMI is very tied to. This is only going to work if we all work on this together. But I can tell you what, right now, our whole community wants this project, and there's going to be hurdles in the way. But right now, we've got the momentum, and we're going to continue to move forward. All right. So my last question for you, Eric, is where do you see the future, particularly of downtown parks? You discussed a few projects that could be potentially happening. What's happening with Breeze Stevens, and what could potentially happen with James Madison Park now that the master plan is complete? What do you see as the future of downtown Madison parks?
I think the future of kind of all parks in our system, but certainly downtown, we have to use our green spaces intelligently to accommodate more human use, while also recognizing the critical nature of the environmental role they play, ecological role that our parks and green spaces play. That extends into stormwater. Doesn't mean a bunch of stormwater ponds, but it means like at James Madison, we can do much better on that shoreline edge. We've been in the master plan calls for it. We've worked with the Clean Lakes Alliance and kind of visioned for that. Very excited to see funding in our budget in an out year right now, capital budget, to start moving forward. It's a concern especially in a time of inflation, that none of our out year estimates seem to be quite holding right now, but hopefully that's tempering a bit. But James Madison could be, we could accommodate more users than today while also making a positive environmental impact. And I think it's that yes and approach that's going to be a challenge across our system. And it's hard to do, but we can do it. And we're blessed that though we don't have all the downtown park space we'd like, and those deficiencies we're addressing in some creative ways that I understand it's not, we're not going to add even a Cleef Park, if you're familiar with that park I mentioned earlier, to downtown anytime soon. Now, we maintain an interest in a strategic downtown park acquisition, specifically west of the square, the Bassett and north of their area. That's become more and more of a challenge. As you know, development pressures are real. But what do I see? I think a lot of really in sustainability improvements and trying to promote diverse uses within our parks, and then interconnecting them. So the Lakeland on the waterfront is a big connection point from downtown to the south. But ultimately, what we see and we're planning towards is the connection to the Alliant Energy Center as that changes as well. But even connecting all the way to Penn, because with a really good connection across that causeway from Law to Olin, you are very, very close to not having to encounter a vehicle other than at the hairball, which is less of a hairball now. I promised I'd stop calling it the hairball, but I just can't bring myself to do it yet. But
everyone knows what you're talking about.
Yeah,
We're
it's
referring to it as the hairball.
if you list them all
Yeah.
the streets, it gets confusing. People are like, is that the right? No, hairball.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that Wilson,
Yeah.
Willie. Well, what's Willie if you're an out of towner? Right?
Yeah. But from McPike Park, Breeze Stevens area, even James Madison, you're just a few blocks, a couple crossings, and we understand there's not easy. But from getting that bike path, once you're on the Cap City path, you are a block or two with one more intersection really to navigate to Penn Park, right? To Vilas Park. And I think that's the future. I mean, the reality is we're not going to dramatically expand land holding in our downtown, even across the city. We're getting close to capped. We'll never be fully capped. We continue to strategically acquire land, but we got to use the land we have really wisely. We got to do it in partnership. We got to do it sustainably. The good thing is, tell our communities, there's an amazing parks team, and they're not going to do it alone, but they're quite talented. And they do really good work, and we can do these things. And there are examples of it across our community. And I'm excited to continue to work on those. Brittingham Parks is an example where there's work on natural area management within Brittingham Park. People don't maybe notice it as much, but the shoreline's got a naturalized edge, which helps with geese population. There's things like that. And we really are trying to do a lot with our limited land holdings in the downtown area. And I think we can, and we can do better.
And well, we didn't barely even touch the subject of Breeze Stevens, right? Which you mentioned before, but that's a space that's been dramatically changed for the better and created so much vibrancy for the Cappy section of downtown. And we potentially could see more improvements, right, with the addition of the pro women's soccer team. Eric, from all of us at Downtown Madison Inc., thank you for everything that you do for our downtown parks and for our parks throughout our entire city. We are a park city. We should be very proud of it. It should be a tenet that should be on every one of our advertising posters. Come to Madison because we've got great parks. And that's you. That's you and your team with CJ and Mark and Lisa and everyone in the Parks Department. It's such a talented group of people. Thank you for what you do for downtown. You make it a lot more green and you make it a lot more friendly for everyone to come. So thank you, Eric, for all that you do.
Thank you very much, Jason.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining our December DMI advocacy update. I want to thank our partners at Sinair, Fiore Companies, and Hush Blackwell for your partnership. Hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season. We hope you see you downtown with lots of shopping bags and a full belly, supporting our local businesses in and around the downtown. Thank you for all your support throughout this year of Downtown Madison Inc. and downtown itself. We hope to see you again in the new year. Have a wonderful holidays, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye now.